My name is Patana. Paneling with me is Kila, David, Fu, and Prashna. Just a friendly reminder to the audience, please keep your cheer and jeer to minimal and silence your phone. So without further ado, on the motion that this House regrets the progressive media's emphasis on identity politics to forward the liberal agenda, I would like to call for the Prime Minister to present the case. Here. Sorry.
In this debate, I will do several things. Firstly, I will clarify and contextualize the liberal agenda. Secondly, I'll establish our burdens. Thirdly, I will tell you what we stand for. Then I'll go on to prove several harms and why we take this debate. Yeah. All right, so first, what is the liberal agenda? Basically, this is the central idea of the liberal agenda is to push back against discrimination on the disenfranchised. So you're always trying to help the lowest common denominator in the social climate that you exist in. And try to push back against things like radicalism because that also achieves that greater motive. You try to use active ways to empower the disenfranchised so that they get benefits and the quality of their lives increase across the board. What exactly is our burdens in this debate? We think that this debate is basically about which strategy is the best vehicle to use in order to propel for this agenda forward. So both sides are at a consensus that the liberal agenda is the ultimate motive in this debate. So we will prove to you several outcomes of how this best propels it forward and why those outcomes are crucial in this debate. Number three, what do we stand for in this regret motion? Because in the absence of this, the use of identity politics, we think that what you would have in replacement of that is that you appeal on a broad-based constituents. That means you reframe your arguments and your the way in which you propagate your message to not be based on the identities or the immutable characteristics of your target supporters, right? That means you appeal instead to the ideologies or the problems that they face without discriminating between their identities. We think that this is something that is crucially different, and we will tell you why that is so. But before I move on, there's also another clarification that I need to make. My speech is going to be about the political impacts of this. And before I move into that, I need everyone to understand this so that this debate does not get dragged into the mud. We're not able to change the political structures in the politics system, right? So things like gerrymandering or like political capture, those don't go away on either side. And this is important to understand because it means that we do our best based on the context that we exist in. And we think that based on this imperfect context, our model is one that works best for these three reasons. We think that basically when you adopt the alternative, when you appeal to your broad-based constituents instead of adopting identity politics, you are able to capture a much more, and the examples that I showed you will be based on the US presidential elections and how both have fared, because both alternatives have been adopted in the past. So basically, what is status quo right now? We think that it's very true that problems of people are valid and they exist on a spectrum, and sometimes this spectrum is segregated, right? So for example, you have Black people who are discriminated, they don't get sufficient healthcare and all that. And you also have white people who are discriminated if they're poor or whatever. So that means common struggles do exist. But we think that the problem in status quo is that right now, the adoption of identity politics means that you focus solely on the identities before you focus on the problem. So this is to say that if you want to challenge the healthcare system and you want to get support to for an upheaval of that system, when you go to your supporters, you say, Black people are facing discrimination in this area. We need to band together and consolidate our political leverage in order to change these systems. We think that this creates several harms for three things, right? Number one is that must realize that the crux of the identity politics is antithetical to a lot of the things that the liberal agenda and progressives stand for in general. Simply because it's antithetical, the two ideas are antithetical. If you examine it at a principle level, the cause of progressives is to push back against discrimination. Where does the discrimination originate from? It originates upon those rights based on immutable characteristics. So it's very strange for people who have been there since the beginning, people who have been there when we devised this and wanted to adopt this and see this as a core cause we want to fight for, that you now use the same Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton in the primaries. Because if you look at the politics and Hillary Clinton's campaign in the primaries was one that fundamentally was based on identity politics. She was banking a lot on her woman card, saying that I am a woman. The policies and how these changes in policies would result in outcomes for everyone, regardless of your identity, right? Because of that, it introduced a huge divide into the Democratic Party, and because of that, even though he eventually lost out because of structures that we cannot change, the result of identity politics was that these supporters felt Hillary Clinton in presidential elections. And we think that this was a very unfortunate outcome of this debate. Second problem is that you do not relate struggles, you place a barrier of entry for them to support you when they don't look like the people at the faces who are the faces of your movement. We think that because of this, you will never be able to capture them, even though they get the same, even though ideologically they share common ground with the things that you're standing for. Third problem is this thing called new age elitism. When your identity politics gets hyped up and works so much to the point at which the middle class and poor white American cannot even relate to liberalism, you introduce a do not even
people will always be discriminated based on their identities, irrespective of the proposal, right? We think that women will always have horrible marriage rape laws, for instance. We think that African Americans will still be incarcerated 6 times more often than white people. That these are identity politics. We require a framework from government to how do you actually cater these issues. So we assume in government's role, the way in which you cater to these issues are based on issues. So the income, such as it's wrong that you do not try to right that wrong at the end of the day. Before I move on to my debate, let's first be very clear to the burden that our wishes to take into this debate, right? So we think that firstly, the debate requires you to not argue that the identity politics is inherently the most right version of for a liberal agenda. So objectively, it's something that liberal remember that in your mind. Three things I'll talk about in this debate. Balances out the playing field for progressive. Why? Because firstly, a lot of things the government said was true to some extent, right? That people would still discriminate. Would still do this because racial sexuality or your gender was really unclear in their world to how you actually push back discrimination. They told you that when you do not write on identity anymore, the white majority will not do that to you. But this is untrue because of multiple reasons. One, because just white supremacist Republicans will still write on that because of three reasons, right? Because of religious indoctrination, for instance. Because the churches just tell them that you are a better person and the America belongs to you because of some divine revelation, because of some white church, right? But secondly, because it's an easy way to pry on the fear of other white people that this are not doing that to you, right? So it's an easy model for them to actually win votes at the end. Lastly, because what happens is it has been proven as a model for them to the Congress, such as Fox, for instance, will still hamper on identity politics. They will just say that we have to vote for along these lines because we are white, because it's good for the white people. And this the black African Americans that you should cater to like things that you should not cater to irrespective of what happens is African Americans will be divided along Republican, along the Democrat. Therefore, they do not mobilize as African Americans. It's really hard to get any kind of African American representative because all these white people are mobilizing along white lines, along racial lines, while you are not, right? But secondly, the thing what happens is you need, as a progressive media, you need to balance out the narrative. Because if you do not do this, what happens is a lot of times you only have all these racial insults being spewed on them because firstly, what happens is you need to balance out the narrative because you want to win on the fanciest. A world in which you do not do that and white media continuously try to be on racial lines is a world in which you don't try to win the fanciest. Because we think we think that trying to work on in a world in which you try to fight for identity politics is actually really compelling to the vast majority of people, right? You say things such as reparation, you say things such as you need to right the wrong and you need to be you need to acknowledge your biases. These are the kinds of things that you fight for, and we think a lot of fanciest will win on the outside. Sure. Yeah.
All right. Now, but African Americans don't exist in isolation. The real question is, how do you get the larger, broad-based white Americans to care about African Americans? Is it by talking about
problem for me? I'm sure who can do this. Firstly, because what happens is a lot of the times, unfortunately, progressive medias are actually really powerful. So you have companies such as Fox, CNN, and so on, right? The alternatives just don't exist. So if they do not try to push the narrative that we should fight on identity lies, nobody else will, and it's hard to counteract the kind of racist insults the white throw to you, right? Because other kinds of alternatives such as politicians and so on are left
now, let's call on the candidates here.
Is it okay? Okay, I will speak from here. Can you move the laptop there? So no doubt women, African Americans, all have got very specific issues that affect them exclusively. It's insufficient for a leader of opposition to just highlight this and say, the moment you pander to identity-based politics, you get to deal with this. Without showing how is it that the roadmap to victory can be achieved. Because I think Amanda did sufficient enough to highlight what happened in the most recent US election. And so how is it when Hillary adopted the same method that Trump wanted to, you lost out as simple as on a numbers game. Because Trump pandered to the white majority and Hillary was pandering to the more minority votes of women and also the people of color. That example was sufficient to show that we regret, because this is a regret debate, and why is it that we have to go back to our grassroots, true ideology as to how is it that the liberal agenda should be pushed forward by the progressive movement. In my speech, I'll deal with two issues. First, how do we deal with identity-specific issues and the capture of the larger audience deals specifically with the leader of opposition? And second, media and politics and bringing the conservative to the table. At the end of both these issues, this debate should have been settled. So first, dealing with identity-specific issues. I think in talking about this, you must also recognize that together with identity-specific issues, there are also broader issues that affect everyone. What do I mean by this? Things like poverty, things like healthcare, things like job and wages, things like hygiene, things like cheaper housing. These are things that affect everyone across the board, regardless of identity-specific things. Of course, there's some discrimination, like women-based discrimination, African-American discrimination, etc. Recognizing that there are two facets of this, side government, in Amanda's speech, already told you how is it that we can pander to the bigger problem like poverty and healthcare, etc. When you pander to everyone based on the issues as opposed to identity. Why is this the case? Because a lot of people suffer the same problems regardless of identity. For example, as much as you want to talk about things like healthcare, job, wages, hygiene, poor housing, a lot of African Americans have the same problem. But the moment you isolate and say that this is an African American agenda, that's when you lose out all the white people and people of majority that also have the same problem. There are a lot of poor white persons that also want jobs and wages. The good example would be Trump, and so how he pandering to this very same class, and he really lost out to the same types of people, right? So if you can pander to them, the important thing, you reach a commonality, and that's when you bring people together. But why is this very much important? The moment it's an us versus them mentality, there is absolutely no reasons for any person who's white to ever resonate, to receive and sympathize with the hardships that African Americans face. But why is this very much important? Because this achieves the same problem this solves the same problem they wanted to deal with. Right? Let's look at history, right? If we talk about African American and slavery, women with regards to suffrage, homosexual equality, towards the longest time, the reason why these groups, these minorities had achieved success is because they managed to pander to the majority. At the moment when you go by issue-based things and progressive movement gets to deal with them a lot faster, that's when a white person can resonate towards a black person because they had some commonalities first. For example, you don't have a job, I don't have a job. You both have healthcare problems, etc. When you have some form of commonality first, and the majority is a lot more comfortable in the life they have right now, that's when they'll be willing to resonate and think about the specific issues that affect the African Americans and women and etc. Right? The same thing happened to the women's suffrage. Right? It's only when the men who are the more comfortable jobs, their education, etc. That's when they look at the other groups of society that exist. Women, look, these people are also same as us. They have the same problems. It's just that they have specific issues that affected them. Which is why the feminist movement agenda was not meant like outdated concept. It was us against the patriarchy. The patriarchy is what they're pushing up against us, right? Similarly, against the LGBT movement, it wasn't homosexual against heterosexual, it's about sexual liberation in of itself. It's about making inclusivity, bringing more people to the table as opposed to point blank dividing people. That is an outdated strategy that didn't work, and the more inclusive strategy is what that has been effective, right? Meaning to say that you can only get tangible outcomes when you have the majority on your side, right? That's how elections work, that's how voters work, right? And they never showed us how can they get the majority on their side. Pandering to African Americans, fine, but you don't live in an isolation, as Raj pointed out in the POI, right? You do live with the majority. And for you to first pander to them, you must reach a commonality first, and the moment the common things are solved, that's when the issue-based things are solved. But worst case, let me just discuss it. Worst case, let's say the identity-based things are not solved directly. At the very minimum, your African Americans and women get the benefit, things like elevation of poverty, things like higher job wages, right? Things like cheaper housing. Because these are things that also affect them, and also at the specific things aren't solved, at least because we show you the outcome that comes about pandering to majority in terms of getting elections, right? The conclusion, the specific backseat first as to the more bigger issues that affect everyone, and we are willing to make the trade-off. Side government, second, and policies go for that.
What is the majority when you're forced to compromise along the way?
I'm gonna call out this cop-out. There's a cop-out that's saying, no, the liberals can do both. It's just an emphasis debate. Okay, here's why you would lose out if you adopt the same strategy. The very same, if the conservatives are pandering, if the progressives are pandering to African Americans and women, the conservatives are also using the same strategy, they're pandering to whom? The white men. In terms of numbers, if you go by the same strategy and want to draw a divide, the divide is not 50-50. The divide is going to be like what, 80-20. Because in terms of majority vote, if it comes to things like time sensitivity as to how much media time can you emphasize on, we would rather emphasize on things like the more commonality. Why is this something is important? When you go by the same liberal agendas that Amanda talked about in terms of talking about issue things as opposed to identity-based things, that's when you talk about give statistics of poverty, give statistics of poor housing, how does it affect a lot of people on your own liberal media, that's when you also invite the conservative media to discuss it also. The conservative media can no longer say, make America great again, white people are important, because the progressive media is talking about actual things that affect people. That's when your own people, the majority white people also say, yeah, but why are we talking about this when these things are also, they look more important, right? That's when they will push forward both the media and your politicians to discuss the same issue-based things to talk about, right? And this can only happen in a world where the progressive media starts first, because the conservative media is never going to start first and go to identity-based things because they have the benefit of numbers on their side, right? So it's the progressive media that has to push forward first to invite the discussion from the other side. Because the moment the conservative media tries to discuss, they will lose out because they won't be able to justify as to the broader issue-based thing and focus primarily on identity. This is how you also get voters from the conservative side towards the progressive side by talking that we are a lot more inclusive. We deal with the problem at hand as opposed to identity-based things. I think in this debate, we have showed you our outcome. We show you first why we regret this modus operandi for the progressive movement and progressive media, because it's one we can never win on the same front of conservative. So second, we can get outcomes of a broader picture, and the identity-specific things can also be solved by the longer run route to propose.
So amazing, side governments case. So amazing that conservatives on the ground that already have historically already have stereotypes towards African Americans against women suddenly change their mind when we talk about poverty. We've been doing this for ages. People have been always trying to use broad-based politics
and trying to fight under the basis of poverty and similar struggles, and still these conservatives won't change their mind because they're implicitly fighting for white privilege by using these broad-based things. We think that the progressive media has an obligation to bring up these liberal agendas. We think also that the progressive media is uniquely the only platform when we can counter these implicit biases that are already pre-existing in history. We don't think government can run with the idea that suddenly everyone's going to change their mind. Firstly, let's talk about a few rebuttals regarding them changing the conservatives' mind. Okay, I told you, conservatives already hate you. We think that it's already happening. It's unlikely for you to change your mind when suddenly you have the same base ground. Everyone is poor in this world. Is it suddenly you change your mind? We don't think that's a probability because at the end of the day, even if you help poverty, African Americans will still suffer worse than white Americans because discrimination and unique problems that these unique identity-based problems are still going to suffer. We think that at the end of the day, if we fight for poverty, the people that are going to get lifted from poverty are the white people, because at the end of the day, black people are still discriminated because of their race. We don't think you're going to help that. Oh, you want to fight against healthcare? We don't think that like leaving identity-based politics unaddressed can help anything. We don't think conservatives will change our mind. And secondly, let's talk about the divide. They think that, oh, we need to pander to this majority. We don't think so. So long as we can pander to fan sitters that already have the ability to like evaluate both sides, then we think it's a good thing that we have to bring up these liberal agendas, because some people are not hardcore conservatives. Therefore, you need to explicitly tell them that these people that are conservatives are going through these problems, because then they can evaluate these two. Under their side, identity-based politics is never mentioned. Therefore, fan-sitters will never get to evaluate the two scenarios and the unique problems that minorities go through. We think that under our side, we win those people. But like thirdly, right, the divide. Okay, we're willing to get a divide. We understand that sometimes in fighting for identity-based politics, you're going to have to create sections and you're going to have to fight for race, religion, and that's a lot to take in. But understand that we are not willing to compromise our fights, and we're not willing to compromise our agendas just because we are afraid of divide. I mean, it's called, like, there are a lot of sections, they're bound to be divided. We think that we're okay with that. But like, okay, like they talk about, but like, let's just fight for everything, the same thing. No. Firstly, understand that because historically these people are already discriminated, the first thing you have to do is undo that discrimination and put them on an equal platform to begin with, right? We don't think that happens under your side because you never counted the initial problem to begin with. Sure.
Okay, so obviously the discrimination, all these things are very ideological, I mean, very utopian that you want to solve. Please show me how you can achieve the outcome by showing me how you can get in office to make any form of change.
Okay, sure, I'll tell you that. Now, firstly, I think it's important to know that this debate is more not only about the importance of identity politics, but also why the progressive media necessarily has an obligation to push for this identity politics. And we'll tell you why there is already a pre-exit there. The status quo also shows that conservative media, or like neutral media under their side, because no one's fighting for anything, means that they are implicitly forcing biases towards you and already protecting white privilege, right? Firstly, understand that because that already exists, a few things, right? There are already things in the system that show you there are these pre-existing biases. For example, because how many presidents were white, CEOs are all men. All these things prove that these agendas, or like these sort of that these biases already exist against them. This is bad. Why? Because under their side, they never address the unique problems. We think that identity politics uniquely helps because at the end of the day, note that conservative media will always push for white privilege. But the problem is that there is no explicit means for you to counter that because you are too worried that, oh, you get backlash, etc. We don't think that's a problem. The point at which you point out and explicitly say that, oh, women, black people face specific unique problems is the point at which you get to put these discussions, you can push this discourse forward. And at the end of the day, that's how you counter the initial and already existing biases against. Also, secondly, is the principle of reparation and self-defense. Understand, no, sit down. Understand that African Americans in and of itself and women have already gone through discrimination. Also notice that conservative media is biased towards them and has always put them on the sidelines by never mentioning and by always using words such as poverty, but at the end of discrimination on the ground because it was never handled in the first place. Understand this. Because they were at the medias and conservative medias are like Islamophobic, homophobic, our principle as progressive to counter that by giving the version or the pushing liberal agendas, because at the end of the day, you counterbalance media and media sides, because it shows that conservative media has been attacking Therefore, the only way for you to push liberal agendas is by using all levels of defense, right? But other than that, the principle of reparation, if they want to say, oh, broad-based fighting, understand that there are some black people that are poor. We understand there are, there are black people that are rich. There are also women that are rich. There are also gay people that are rich. But understand these people have unique problems that you wouldn't per se. Oh my God, my voice. If you were to go with these broad, why is this so? Because even if you're rich as a black person, the specific hurdles that you go through will never be counted. Oprah had to work twice as hard as any white person to get to where she is, and you will never make it easier for any other black people if per se you didn't fight identity-based politics. Because at the end of the day, you're only trying to solve poverty, but then white people will always have it better than black people because these people have unique problems. Now, why identity politics is extremely important towards the liberal agenda? Understand that their biggest problem is that we cannot change. Yes, we can. There are so many people that are supporting the liberal agenda. People are starting to understand because you push it up and you of these unique problems at the end of the day. We think that this won't happen under your side. Under your side, comparatively, people will still run on these stereotypes and people will still get discriminated. This debate happens on a comparative, on who gets more traction or who gets under our side. We are able to at least make a discussion about it because it is explicitly about and explicitly shown on the media and progressive media. It is able to counterbalance the already conservative media. Under your side, we don't get this discussion because at the end of the day, everyone is on a similar playing field and no one has ever historically been slave, has gone to slavery, etc. We think that under your side, you don't get changes at the end of the day. Thank you.
Panel and member of the audience, if this debate was about listing down a list of harm or list of specific issues that relate to the lives of African American and why they have been discriminated, then we can all walk out of this room 5 minutes into our first speech because that cannot be the debate. The debate has to be about outcomes. This debate has to be about who better the life of minorities, who better the life of African Americans. In the ideal world, sure, I would like to end all discrimination. I would like to have African Americans to live the same life as white Americans. But that is not going to happen. We need certain compromise, and that's what we talk. We gave you an alternative roadmap of what could have happened and what we should have done as Democrats. They have failed to tell us why that roadmap would have worked. And we pointed out that everything that they talked about was done by the Liberals, was done by the Democrats back in the 2016 election. What happens? You guys lost. Nothing changed. Things were exacerbated. We provided the change. With this, firstly, how do you deal with their problem, the identity-specific issues? Secondly, I would like to talk about who provides better media, better discourse, and by extension, better policy. Lastly, I want to talk about who best helps the vulnerable. So let's talk about identity-based issues. We give you actual analysis as to why this can happen. What are the examples that we give you? One, we give you the feminist movement. Second, we give you the LGBT movement. With regards to the feminist movement, with regards to combating patriarchy, the feminist movement was only able to thrive because it has the support of men, which is why you have the man allies, everyone supporting feminist movement. The feminist movement made it a point to make men our allies because we needed men to help. Same thing with homosexuals or LGBT. You needed the help of straight people. You needed the straight individual to come down to the Pride Parade and march alongside with us. These things have happened before people care. What was the response we got from DLO? DLO did say that, wow, how can we suddenly change? Yes, we can change because we provided analysis as to why we can change. Once we are comfortable, once we don't view you as an enemy, once we have food on the table, only then our radius of empathy is extended and we might care about you. So if these things can happen and has happened before, I'm unsure as to why white individuals can't do so. Compare this to the analysis of our people simply won't change. They've been doing this, they will always do this. We think they can. So have a seat. We're not saying that these issues are not important. What you're saying is you need to put this issue on the back burner. Probably later on, we can talk about this issue. At least at the very minimum, we have economic empowerment. If we are able to show that we can go into office, we have economic empowerment, we have jobs that are able to cushion or defend you against things like discrimination. On your side, you lose office, you get a Republican office, you don't get to solve issues like identity-specific issues, and you don't even get economic empowerment. That's a lot of net negative on you. Second issue. Let's talk about who provides better media. What's their strategy? Their strategy is to use the exact same tactic that Republicans have used. I.e., what you do is you make it easy for Republicans or Republican media like, I don't know, The Hill or what's the other one, Fox, racial life, and say that they only care about the old people, they only care about African Americans, they only care about Mexicans. We are white, and we're going to stand for white policy, and we're going to protect you because we are white. That's when you get baseless policy with no substance. I.e. Donald Trump. He made no sense. He had no roadmap or economic policy. All he had to do was to say, I'm white, you're white, I'm going to stand for you. And it was sufficient. Because on the other side, on the liberal side, you are not talking about policy as well. You're talking about we must have African American. And let's look at the articles that you see on My African Post. There's one article that literally reads, why all men are evil, or why by virtue of you being white, you have contributed to the problem. Think about it. If you attack someone based on generic identity line that's immutable to me, do you think that I'm going to listen to you? Do you think I'm going to read your article? Do you think I'm going to come to discussion? No! I'm going to go back to Fox News. I'm going to go back to Republicans simply because even though they have no substance, at least they are white. At least they're telling me that I'm going to protect you because I'm white. So therefore, under outside what changes? Under we become the bigger man, bigger person in the discussion of media when we talk about actual policy. We talk about lowering income tax. We talk about trade deals. We talk about things like creating new jobs or increasing minimum wage or things like this. These are actual policies. Now, Republicans can no longer talk about baseless policy without something like we are white. Because we will question that. The progressives are talking about these policies. How do you respond? Are you going to increase minimum wage? What is your proposal on this? Are you going to create a new tax alternative? These things have to be discussed. Therefore, we create a better discourse where you force people to appeal to the voter. Because I don't believe the characterization that white individuals are so dumb and only think about their racial Nazi shit. They also care about economics. Like, LO said it themselves. People fear Mexicans, people fear them taking a job. And that's exactly what happened in the Trump election. Where people literally in the trailer parks in Texas saying that, dude, we are poor too, we need jobs too. They didn't go and say we are white, we are Christian. No, they actually wanted economic empowerment. And that's the thing that you actually get on the outside when you discuss this issue. Last thing that I want to talk about, therefore, conclusion we get better. So, last thing, vulnerable. Okay, vulnerable is too limited. Second, which one is the best method of framing that they can relate to? Is when you talk about poverty and frame discrimination as an American issue, as an American ideal that a vast majority of people can stand by, as opposed to making it identity-based. And look at that, people always vote about racial lines, religion, they're crazy. No, people care about economics first. People care about objective things that you can relate first. What is the example? The example here is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton won the election, and his voter base were white, poor individuals. Why? Because he talked about unionization. He talked about going against Ronald Reagan's Reaganomics. That is how he got there. He didn't talk about identity politics. He talked about issues that were broad-based, issues that caters to white individuals as well. And he won the election. He was in power. Two-thirds because we're talking about things like union. And unionization was at their height during Bill Clinton's era. Compare this to what his wife did, Hillary Clinton. Not really talking about economy, not really talking about white people. What happened? Therefore, I told you, it's easier to relate. If I'm a white person, I don't understand what it's like to not give affirmative action. I don't understand what to be, what's like to be microaggraved, name call, whatsoever. I don't know. But what I do know is what it feels like to starve. What I do know is what it feels like to not be able to tell me. Only when I attend it, only then I can view as people. Only then I can view as friend. Only then I can come together and support for the same policy. Because you are poor, I'm poor. Screw the black and white thing. Let's talk about identity first. And that's how you create change. Once I don't view you as an enemy, because your side is a divide, I have to view you as an enemy because I'm white, you're black. And the outside, when we are all poor, only then, later on, I can care about your problems. Once I'm comfortable, I have food on the table, probably I should also solve the issue. Last thing is the whole African American, they don't know who to vote for. African Americans are not, their voting are not contented. They are definitely going to vote for Democrats. You can't tell me that they are confused, suddenly they're going to vote for Republican. That shit makes no sense. For those reasons, we win.
Freedom and liberation must be fought, but will never be given by the oppressor. It must be fought by the oppressed. The problem with government's case is that the compromises that they're making to pander to the majority, to the whites, are putting these majority individuals into further positions of power, which means that you further divide the inequality within your particular nation. I think that all that pandering and all that compromise doesn't specifically solve the issues. This is a new matter. It's been coming across all speakers, how these issues are particularly specific, and now why there's an importance for us to deal with each and one of them. How broad-based policies don't particularly solve the issue. I'll be talking about three things in my speech. One, about the impacts of these broad-based policies. This is adapting the best-case scenario, assuming that they're able to get these particular things. Second is about the majority, why pandering to the majority in of itself is harmful, about the liberal agenda and how what we're doing is principally in line with the liberal agenda. This means that regardless of the outcomes, it's still something that liberal media has to invest in and has to carry out. First, about the broad-based policies. They told us that the thing that a lot of the white individuals are able to relate to is regarding them being poor. Therefore, you structure policies which cater, economic policies which cater to poverty. Now, the thing is, if that everyone like across races is experiencing poverty and they want change for poverty, we think that in our world they'll probably vote for those things anyway, right? And I think that therefore the economic policies pushing to uplift individuals under the line of poverty will particularly still pass in our world because it's a shared thing. Well, thank you. This debate is about how are you going to be able to push these particular policies, push policies for specifically for these oppressed, because that's the objective of the liberal agenda, right? So, but second, the problem with broad-based policies, second problem with broad-based policies as well is that I feel either asking that how in the long run are you able to specify and in the long run cater to the specific issues regarding your particular identity? Because know that a poor white person and a poor African American experiences different things, right? The poverty that an African American experiences, no thank you, is way worse because they will have to deal with the crimes within their area. You have to deal with the lack of education that they don't have access to. You have to deal with all this lack of security and police brutality within those issues. All of these issues are race specific. And these are the types of issues which will never be discussed by your neutral media or by your conservative media, right? No, thank you. No, thank you. And these are the types of issues in which you are not able to pass. So therefore, they had a burden to tell us, how are you able to solve these issues in the long run? I think that they have failed to do so. Second, regarding the majority. First, I don't necessarily think that the majority is important. So thank you. Because at the very least, because of my opening line initially, that when you pander to the majority, that's when you lose out on a lot of things, and that's when you're not able to cater for yourself. And then in this particular instance, regardless of in this particular instance, you must defend for yourself, and therefore I think that in the political, in the political climate that we have, if you were to say that, if individuals use race-based, identity-based politics, and you were to not give them what they wanted on the basis or on the virtue of their identity, I think that a lot of the individuals on the ground would particularly not be happy with that. No, thank you. So I think that actually by using identity-based politics, you're able to use things like, for example, white guilt in order for you to get things that you would actually particularly want. But we also think on a second level is that even if you don't believe that, then the hatred that in these far conservative individuals have are particularly irrational. Therefore, there's a lot of the rational argumentation that they said they will be able to provide to the masses won't necessarily work. In that particular instance, I don't think that you'll be able to get that at the end of the day. No, thank you. Then they said that, oh, then now you would divide the Democrats and you won't be able to get and you won't be able to pass these individuals. I don't think that it necessarily has to be on the larger scale, right? I think that even on the smaller scale, of the constituencies or on the ground, I think that African Americans did a good job of not allowing Roy Moore to be elected in Alabama. And that those are the types of small wins that we're able to achieve in our. We particularly are able to unify individuals of that particular race to come together and vote against the oppressors who purposely create policies, no thank you, which are oppressing your particular identity, right? So then, therefore, I think that in that instance, we are able to win the majority on the smaller ground. Even if we don't win the majority on the larger or national level, then those are still victories. Without having the harm of having to compromise issues that are important to you. Last, regarding the how this is in line with the liberal agenda, but yeah, sure.
Okay, we agree that this is equal. You talking about identity politics could really antagonize the white. You lose office, you get Trump into office. How does this make things any better for the African Americans?
Because I think that we would rather have a world in which that in the long run, where we stand our ground and we focus on these smaller victories. Because in comparison to that, in their world, people would have voted for Trump anyway, right? Because of the how politics particularly work, you have ways of leaning towards the conservative. That's how Trump got into power, right? Because they don't eradicate identity politics, but in fact we are able to use the media in order to unify these individuals to win these politics. And I think that on a comparative, if Trump was gonna win anyway, I'd rather have a few individuals within the Congress to be able to cater for my rights, right? So that's how we get the change. Those are the outcomes that we're able to achieve in our. But lastly, how is this in line with the liberal? How is this in line with the liberal agenda? Nopal already told you from the beginning, and this went unengaged, right? That the purpose of the liberal agenda is to reduce the inequality gaps and to correct the wrongs which happened in history. They never told us how are we able to achieve that at the end of the day. We think that at the very least we stand our ground and we're able to fix and we fight for the changes. Specific issues regarding like African American issues or regarding issues specific to your particular identity caused by historical oppression. These are the types of issues that they lose out because you've been pandering to the majority. I think that they're unable to change later on in the future because the majority will always feel that we've already given you this much, right? So I think that's how they don't get anything. So even if the progress in our world is slower, like our worst case scenario, right? We would rather have that trade-off in the hopes in the long run that you are able to reduce this divide, or you are able to reduce the divide. For all those reasons, I think that the progressive media should stand their ground and should still maintain in line with the liberal agenda.
Thank you. Wait, now let's call for opposition to submit this.
For government, the only way for African Americans to get some kind of way in life is to pander to former slave masters. Let us just digest that. We think that that is a worse world because you literally have to depend on them to change their minds, and you literally have to depend on these people to actually make change. We prefer a world in which you are more independent, in which you might not win the whole of Congress, you win specific constituencies, but you're able to make small changes that matter to these people's lives. A few things I have to point out before I go on to my issues. Right? Firstly, if you notice that a lot of the engagement and analysis that government gave were a lot of it based on like example logic. So if you worked before for Bill Clinton, it will work again. If you worked before and during Obama, it will work again. Right? We think that there was insufficient analysis to like structural reasoning to why you necessarily win over the majority, right? We think we have given structural analysis to why the white majority, given that they have now majority vote for Trump, they wouldn't necessarily vote for you, even if you do not append their identity politics. That's the thing that they have to keep it. So 2 things I'll talk about. Firstly, let's talk about the burdens that will happen in debate. Secondly, let's talk about can we actually fix the problem. Thirdly, can we actually win? And lastly, about principles. So firstly, notice that they just do not want to challenge the burden that we propose into this debate, that this debate is actually about what the media should do. That's why it's worded that way, right? We think that there was just no sufficient analysis. So they made the debate into what the liberal agenda should generally do. So all those arguments about what the media should do, because this is how you want to counteract narratives, this is why you want to give, you want to try to win over major fence-sitters because these arguments are compelling. All of those things still stood at the end of the debate. We were very charitable by taking on their burden and still engaging. They didn't want to do that for us. So secondly, even if the burden was right, that this debate is just a discussion about what the liberal agenda should be, we still win on that issue because of 3 different clashes, right? Firstly, can we win? They told us when you appeal to the broad majority, you can win. That still doesn't engage in a lot of the responses that we gave, right? We told you firstly that you can always have compelling arguments such as white guilt, for instance, when you use things such as reparation to win those people over. But secondly, even if you can't use those compelling arguments, they told us, oh, when you have you go on a broad basis, you win all over these white people. Raj told us, oh, that all these white people care because they are poor, right? But if you notice, all the white people that voted for Trump voted him because he fought for the white identity. So I don't know why you can cater to these people if you talk on the broad basis. But then, even if you can't do so, they've already told you that in our case, you can actually, maybe you can't win the whole of Congress, but when you mobilize, even if you're a minority, you notice that the majority are split between 2 parties. You can mobilize and concentrate your areas, therefore you can win specific constituencies. All of this was not tackled by side government at all, right? We think when you actually win specific congressmen, you have 1 or 2 congressmen, they fight for their specific place. You can cater to issues such as police brutality and so on. That's better off. Secondly, they told us we can fix all problems when you talk about poverty. Not true. We have already told you that poverty is different for white Americans and poverty is different for black Americans, right? So for white Americans, it might be because they can't mobilize capital. For African Americans, it's because job discrimination and so on. Therefore, when we try to fix poverty, what issues are you fighting for? Because it's different at the end of the day. All of this was not catered to by a government at the end. But lastly, and this is where we think there was just no engagement, even if you win and all, we have told you a principal argument to why liberal agenda should not do this. Because of reparation, because it's just the wrong thing to do, right? We've already told you because we put them in slavery for 200 years, we must reparate at the end of the day. Because it's not measured by success. So African Americans in Europe, for instance, would get specific affirmative action for job discrimination if they're rich, because they want to fight on specific issues such as poverty, right? And it's wrong. Because we think what happens is you have to fight for these issues, because even if because they would just stop at poverty, so they wouldn't reparate you for 260 years of slavery if you're rich. They'll say to you, okay lah, you're not poor anymore, so we wouldn't give any money to you. We think that's just principally wrong for the liberal agenda. Because even if you put in Worlds Open, you still qualify for yourself, because the measure of success is not success, it's the kind of hurdles that you go through. And we think it's the right thing to do. I'm very proud.
You're being oppressed, no compromise, stick to our principles, Allahu Akbar. That's basically the opposition bent. I think something debating has taught me is that sticking to your principles alone without outcomes means absolutely jack shit principles. You can only benefit from outcomes. It's insufficient for us to just accuse us of debating on examples, because our examples were coupled with analysis, trends of real-world successes as to how things have worked in the past. All they did was give us ideas, showing us how can it truly materialize in the real world, and by that reason alone, side government takes this debate. 3 issues I'll talk about: the majority, the minority, and also media and politics. I think we also talked about media. It's an MCMC debate after all. First on majority. The important thing to understand here is the relatability point of view. As to how is it, the moment you point blank at the very beginning, draw a divide, it's us against them, you'll never get any forms of relatability. which is why you draw them to the same issues, like poverty, housing, healthcare, and etc., that you bring people together. Because the comparative is identity-based things that you definitely push them away. I think we give you sufficient reason to show you why, even if as a majority, even if you sympathize with the African American cause or women cause, you'll be shied away and turned off because you're antagonized by being blamed as the oppressor, as being blamed as the person that is the cause of all of this, right? So which is why at the end of this, like, you would vote for people like Trump because you have no choice, because the other party is calling you an enemy, right? And that's the comparative that you have to draw. Because the conclusion as to why majorities are important, because you need to pander to them. It's not insofar as they are the slave masters, we will never compromise. You still need them because at the end of the day, they are still the majority within the country. For you to get any form of technical change, you need their votes also, right? Because it's the same white people that also vote for Bill Clinton at the same time, because he moved for things that were more inclusive. And these were analysis given across the board to show you why has been done in the past. We regretted the most recent election because that was something that backtracked on us, right? Second, on minority. This is the bigger thing that they want to talk about. So look, of course, poverty affects black people and white people differently. No shit. But the debate is about how do we deal with poverty first and then the more issue-based things later on. I think we gave you a perfect analysis to when it has worked in the past. If it was about movements, we gave you the analysis of feminist movement, LGBT movement, where it wasn't about men versus women, it was a patriarch, all of us versus a patriarchy. It wasn't about homosexual, heterosexual, it was us against sexual liberation. What does this do? It included everybody into the narrative to fight against the common cause, right? Inclusivity was the way that worked for movements, which is why you must adopt the same metrics towards this setup itself. It's insufficient for them to say you can't show that the whites will never change and etc. Because we gave you reasons as to when it has worked in the past, right? We also give you the slavery example where you needed the whites to change laws and etc. These are examples of which it has worked in the past, right? Because like worst case, right? And this was like all of these results in what? The more issue-based things that get fixed first, like healthcare, poverty, and etc. And or the more discriminative-based things that affect them directly can be solved later, because the moment you see everyone as a neighbor and your neighbor has got is being affected by other things, that's when you are willing to help them also. This was an analysis that's given with example. What was your comparative? It's insufficient for them to say things like the whites will never change, right? Or so things like we will achieve it slower. Because it's our side that achieved that slower. What was the proof and trend or example that should they achieve that same thing slower besides just saying we will be able to achieve it, right? Because the worst case that we managed to show you, even if we don't achieve the specific based things, at least we get actual tangible things that affect everyone, right? Things like healthcare or jobs and like other housing, etc. Still benefits the same minority you talked about, right? And that is the worst case that we went by, but we gave you sufficient analysis as to why is it that we still be able to achieve those other benefits. Media and politics, right? If the conservative party is talking about identity-based things, you can only draw them to the table and discuss actual issue-based when you also push for real issue-based things. And this was an analysis given by myself and pushed into this is important to get actual politics policies, right? As opposed to that some giving sensible policies that don't achieve anything. Panel, in this world, there are many discriminations. The blacks are being discriminated, the white, the women, the gays, and etc. But you have to frame it as an American discrimination for you to get everyone on your side. Proud to propose.
Thank you for your debate. As a front shake hands, and we will start.